Thank you very much, Roberto. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to you all for listening to me and what the European Commission has to say today. First of all, I will start with congratulations. Today is a day that you celebrate the success of the Gaia-X initiative, which indeed, looking at the numbers, the number of members, the program of work, the achievements, it's really impressive to see in such a short time what kind of progress you achieved. And this is the type of progress we would like to see in general for Europe going into what we call the digital decade. The digital decade is really the radical transformation of our economy and society towards a more digital, green and sustainable society. And it's, as you know, the top priority of the European Union. And I would say it's very clear that we have not just words to offer, not just a nice speech to offer, but we have facts to offer. When you look at the amount of resources in the annual, multi-annual program of the Union, and when you look at the recovery plan, Europe is devoting more than 150 billion euros to this goal of the digital decade. When you look at our regulatory reforms across the board in the data economy, platform economy, in all sectors, artificial intelligence, in identity, you see what kind of program we have embarked. And of course, when I say Europe, I really mean the team altogether. That means the European institutions and the member states together. And then the question might be how Gaia-X and the effort you are doing fits in this. Well, of course, the nature of the effort of Gaia-X, it's an effort which is of a private company. It's in a setup which is, an organization which is independent from the institutions and has a very important, a precise role, which is really to foster the openness in terms of data, in terms of utilization of the cloud computing continuum, which is really, the kind of glue that keeps everything together. All of this should be really serving the purpose of the economy and the citizens. That means that the more open it is, the more accessible to every supplier, the more secure it is, the better it is. And that's where there are high expectations from the European Commission side of the outcome that can come from Gaia-X in terms of setting world standards, which are really probably and hopefully will be the reference in the world for cloud and other systems to make sure that the environment is open. It's clearly an environment where innovation is the key, where different vendors can find prosperity, and especially, the final users, being it government users or private users, can have the diversity, the richness, and the openness, and the protection of intellectual property and privacy, which is absolutely necessary, and of course also the security that comes with it. So this is very important, and that's why we have been following the foundation of Gaia-X from the beginning, and we are very happy today to witness the progress of this initiative. When it comes to Europe, European institutions and the member states, as I said, we have this objective to really make Europe a data-driven continent. We have clear objectives when it comes, for instance, to what I called before the computing continuum. We would like to have really, cloud and edge utilized by every sector and being, really the motor or the infrastructure that supports this transformation. We need data. We need to share data across the board. Now, what exactly we are doing? Well, the first and very important action we are undertaking is to make sure that there are enough resources to do that. So I already mentioned the recovery plan and the national recovery plans, and there we see in excess of 6 billion euros that have been allocated to cloud, and they come on top of the resources we have allocated for cloud ourselves. I'm happy to announce that yesterday we opened the calls for the Digital Euro program. We have an ambitious program for 21 and 22. We will have roughly 500 million euros for action supporting the data spaces, cloud to edge infrastructure, and really having the building blocks of the first totally open infrastructure when it comes to cloud provision. We want to use grants, but also we would like to use innovative procurement. We believe that European institutions should actually be championing innovative procurement. That's what we have done with success in supercomputing. That's what it was a necessity, and we have done with success when it comes to the COVID pass, the infrastructure that comes with it, ourselves and the member states, and we will continue doing so. We'll continue doing so in architectures that will support the data spaces and in architecture that will support in general the digital transformation and what we call the digital twinning of the world, which means the twins of, our planet Earth, the twin of our industrial systems, the twin of our bodies. These are important elements that federate data and knowledge to make sure we make the necessary advances. Another important element, of course, is to make sure that each and individual data space, being it in smart computing, mobility, manufacturing, healthcare, has a very effective and participative governance. We are confident that by the end of this year, the Data Governance Act, the first regulatory reform we proposed, will be European law, and that will introduce important elements for management of data spaces, such as the neutral brokers, such as the data donation, such as the partnership between public and private data spaces. We want to go ahead with our data strategy when it comes to regulation, and we hope to present at the beginning of next year the Data Act that will look at the aspects of utilizing the data in a fair way by every participant to a value chain, and also the issue about cloud, how to make sure that the rights of the user when utilizing cloud can be safeguarded. And of course, there's no cloud interoperability, there's no cloud portability if you don't have the right standards. And here it comes, once again, when looking at data spaces, when looking at cloud regulation, the importance to have a group like Gaia-X, an organization that looks at those standards and fosters those standards, because without this kind of standards, rules are a little bit empty, frankly speaking. The other thing we absolutely want to do is to team up with the member states and make sure that together we deliver. And that's why we see with a lot of pleasure the upcoming notification of an IPCI on the next generation cloud. And for this, I would like to thank everyone, and in particular, Minister Altmaier and Lemaire, that are, I know, intervening today, and they acting as co-coordinators in this ambitious endeavor. We also proposed something completely new, which is the so-called European Digital Infrastructure Consortia, which is a new legal setup that allows more than one country to participate in what we call multi-country projects. So if more than one country would like to set up a common cloud infrastructure, a common database, they will now be able to resort to this new legal instrument that will hopefully facilitate the combination of public, private, and commission, so union funds. So this is something in movement, and I think this, I hope, shows, first of all, how Gaia-X can contribute to this really impetus we have to make the digital decade a reality. And I think looking at even more concretely how this contribution and this collaboration can take place. Of course, you can look at the calls in the Digital Euro program, which have been launched yesterday. You can, of course, in particular, looking at our ideas for a European middleware and the next generation cloud, looking at the IPCI, and of course, we look with interest possibly to adopt Gaia-X compatible architecture and standards. And last but not least, we would like really to have an open dialogue and a sharing a common strategy when it comes to data, edge and cloud. And that's why we have announced that we are in the making of a European alliance. And this should provide a unique platform for stakeholders, member states, and industry to deliver all together with us this strategic vision for Europe. And of course, we invite Gaia-X to start a discussion on how we can establish a cooperation and foster synergies. So let's work together and deliver really a genuine single European data market, and especially let's prosper in the digital decade. Many thanks for listening to me.